right, we are live. Thank you, everyone that is joining us here for our chat for Descending Stories. For context, we've been talking about this for several weeks. On Philip's channel and Alan's channel, we've been rotating, going back and forth, discussing them episode by episode, volume by volume. Philip has been manga only. Alan and I have been anime only. Although I did read the final volume, I read it and watched it just to get an idea of what the differences were. Anyway, so the beginning of the stream is going to be spoiler free, and then we will move into spoilers, and it will be our concluding discussion talking about the final 2 volumes and 4 episodes of Descending Stories. Alan and Philip are not linked in the description. I forgot to do that. I'll do that at the end of the stream. Check them out. They're awesome. But I want to give a quick idea of what Descending Stories is before we jump into our spoiler-free thoughts. So chat, remember this is spoiler-free for now. But Descending Stories is about Rakugo, which is a traditional Japanese art form, a single person sitting on a cushion with a fan and a cloth, telling a story, bringing that story to life with nothing but their words and the couple of props that they're allotted and their interpretation of the story. So we follow people with a lot of names. Yakumo, or Ban, or Kiku, who he and Sukuroku have grown up together and learned Rakugo together and pursued the art of Rakugo together. The story starts off with just Yakumo and Sukuroku's daughter, Konatsu, who he has been raising on his behalf. And we know that Sukuroku, as well as his wife, died at some point, and Konatsu, did I call her Kiku or Konatsu?
You called her Konatsu.
Okay, good. We know that she blames him for her parents' death, so their relationship is very tumultuous, but he raised her, and that's the lot that they have in life. We also have Yotaro, who has been taken in as an apprentice for Yakumo, and he's learning the art of Rakugo as well. So at first we get our establishing shot. Here's our crew. And then we go back in time and we watch the story of Yakumo and Sukuroku, or Ban and Shin. We watch them pursue the arts, fall in love with the arts, develop a really, really strong bond, as well as a very, very complicated love triangle that goes on in the middle of all of that as well. And it ends in the climax of how these deaths happened. And then present tense, we have Yakumo, who is torn between the past and the present. He is unable to decide if he'd rather pay the price for his actions or die and take Rakugo with him to the grave. Kind of aligns with the double suicide sort of situation, taking himself and the Rakugo with him, which is a reoccurring thing that comes up throughout the story. And we're watching Rakugo potentially die as culture changes, as the new comes in and the old. There's that tension between the old and the new, as well as watching these characters grow, have challenges, make mistakes. It is a tragedy in many ways. It has some highs, it has some lows. What did y'all think of it? Overall, spoiler-free thoughts.
Oh, so I'll just go first here. There's a lot to love in this series, and overall, I would say it was a real win for me. I really enjoy stories that are about storytelling and the art of telling stories, and the whole aspect of that I found very compelling, especially as this is a form of storytelling that is ancient and is seemingly there's a crisis within it in terms of, do we uphold the tradition or do we change with the times in order to keep this art form alive? But if you change it, will it still be Rakugo, et cetera, et cetera? I love that kind of thing. So that's really well done, and it's made an important part of the story. It's central to several of the characters' arcs, and that's done very skillfully. There are some beautiful, tender moments in this series that got me emotional. Then that's always, I feel like, a plus in good storytelling. I enjoyed learning about Japanese culture through this series. I did not know anything about Rakugo before, and now I feel like, oh, this is a cool thing that I now have some insight into. And I'd actually love to go if I ever have the fortune to go to Japan. I would love to go to a yosei and watch Rakugo. Although
You wouldn't
I
understand a
wouldn't
thing.
understand a word, but it would still be fun. Or there are a few people who do it in English as well, so maybe
Yes.
I could catch that.
It's rare though.
It's also possible. I don't know if they have the when we went to museums in Japan, they had these things you put in your ear and it translates.
Oh, if anyone would
Ah.
have that, it would be probably the Japanese, I would guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall a win for me. I will say, and we will discuss this in more detail when we do the spoilers, I'm sure. But there is a scene later and all three of us are kind of like simultaneously, I think, not wanting to talk about it, but also wanting to vent about it. There is a scene that does spoil a fair amount of the experience for me, and we'll talk about that later. Other than that one scene, I really feel like this was a wonderful story. I found it very compelling, and I'm glad I read it overall. I'm still trying to get over that scene, but for the most part, I feel like this is a really great series if you're interested in a manga that will get you thinking a little bit. It's not like it's not action oriented or anything, but there's a lot of tension and good storytelling. So for me, an overall win.
Alan?
Couple things. Isn't this like the final episode?
Yeah, we're talking spoiler free, and then we'll move into discussing the final scene. Say?
Wait, isn't this the last one? Like,
yes.
I was just weird. You were like summarizing the whole thing. I'm like, isn't this the last one? Like, don't they already know?
Well, there may be people in the stream who haven't read it.
Yeah, we're starting off spoiler free, overall thoughts of the entire series, and then we're going to move into spoilers to talk about the final episodes and final volumes.
But wouldn't they have watched? Oh no, they wouldn't have, because those weren't on your channel. Oh
yeah, okay.
Get
with the program, Alan. Alan's been sick.
I was a bit confused. Murphy was like talking as if it was like the first one. I was like, what? I'm very confused. You all be ashamed of yourselves. You showed into this one, didn't show up to our earlier ones.
There are 96 people here, Alan. It's not like there's hordes of people showing up just for me.
No, I'm just saying, like, that's what, but that's what I'm saying. Like, isn't everyone here, like, haven't they already followed our Descending Stories journey, or else?
No, Alan, they're here because they love Murphy.
I mean, I was not making a value judgment.
Next Buddy Read, I'll have different co-hosts.
I was just confused. Look, that is what I expect. I forgot. Second.
Oh, hold on. I need it to be known that Philip is friends. That's all.
Okay, I'll take that.
The whole time, and I just freaking kicked you to the etc. column. Anyway.
Actually, Alan, they're here despite us. So
that's probably true. I also enjoyed.
What do you think of the series?
I also enjoyed it. I also did not know about Rakugo, though I knew about Japanese culture prior, but I did not. I don't know how I had studied Japan and Japanese without hearing about Rakugo, but it's cool. I like it. It is not a manga or an anime that I would have watched without this, without being included in this, because those like slice of life mangas are just not ones that I choose. There were parts that were slow, but really only at the end of the first season, going into the second season. Otherwise, I really, really enjoyed it. Now, I will say that I was the first to be hit upside the head by the scene that Philip's talking about. And I did warn them both. I said, you should not watch it. So
and that warning just made us
pay closer attention.
No, I know, but there's no, like, I was trying to save you. Like, I was trying to throw myself in front of the train.
Futile.
It was. Guys, I'm telling you, if you have not read or watched this manga or anime, there is a scene toward the end that takes place in a diner. It is in the last episode. You should skip it. I'm not lying to you. If you skip it, you will enjoy the series more. Do not watch it. It adds nothing. And they will attest. It adds nothing. Wow. You are better off for having not seen it.
Yeah, we'll get to it when we talk about. We have strong feelings about it. Overall, though, did you enjoy the series overall, apart from that scene?
Like Philip, that particular scene undermines a lot of it undermines a lot of character development that we like, because now it's weird to be like, you know what, I really like that particular character development. Oh wait, okay. So it undermined a lot of what it was trying to say, and I don't really know why. Like, I don't know if it was like Rakugo survives or whatever, but I did not enjoy it. But overall, I really liked the series. I like the idea of stories, like, you know, the oral tradition of passing down, and each person having their own kind of version, their own way of telling the same story, because Rakugo consists of these 13 or whatever, I don't know, a handful of stories that everyone does, but everyone does in a different way. And I liked, you know, the relationship between the arts and the people, and the people that do it. It's him saying, I'm gonna, like, when I die, I'm gonna take Rakugo with him, is a little presumptuous. That's like saying when Murphy dies, she's taking BookTube with her. And it's just like, you don't get to pick, like, oh, no one can do YouTube after I'm gone. Like, okay, whatever, boss. So I didn't really
understand. Good analogy, Alan. That's really good. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, if he dies, like, everyone, well, I guess we can't do Rakugo. I mean, I don't know. They have societies for it and stuff, so maybe, but it was, I don't know. I just didn't buy a lot of that. But I'm rambling. Philip put it better. Like, I also enjoyed it. I agree with Philip.
Yeah, we're just talking about my death in this stream. That's all.
Making an analogy. Yeah, I could say me, but it'd be less plausible. You have more subs than we do.
I have very similar feelings to y'all. We had agreed. We had made a pact that, Philip, you were supposed to love this ending.
I mean, okay, so the very ending, I'm cool with.
There's a lot to love about the ending.
Yeah.
There's just one that kind of taints a lot. So yes, our plan was to come with different perspectives, but we kind of align quite well. I thought that the series was very, very good. It's a very subtle series, incredible character work, amazing character scenes and dramatic scenes, a couple of really phenomenal, well, especially one really phenomenal twist that recontextualizes everything, one terrible twist that recontextualizes everything. Lots of really great scenes. A couple of complaints I have. There were a couple things that were anticlimactic, a couple of things that I didn't love. But for the most part, it was a really solid series. And yeah, I enjoyed reading it, and I enjoyed a lot about the end, minus the thing that I hated. So read it if you want, I guess. Those are our spoiler-free thoughts. Is there anything else you want to say spoiler-free, or do you want to just dive into talking about the ending?
Yeah, I think that it's possible that a couple of the issues we have might, for me anyway, especially because I'm the newbie here, it might be a lack of familiarity with the culture with a couple of them. I'm not talking about the big thing, because that you also could talk about in terms of cultural relativism, I suppose, but I just don't buy that for that. But for some of the minor things, I think some of it might be my lack of awareness at times. And I appreciate that this series did help me learn a lot about the culture. So yeah, I would rather do that. Actually, if we could have this conversation pretending, Diana, that scene and that did not happen, then we would be gushing probably the whole time. But oh well, yeah.
Alan, this is in response to you. I think it's specifically his tradition of Rakugo that he intended to die with him, not Rakugo as a whole. So I actually agree with that. I think it was more because Bon the whole time, those names are easier for me, so that's what I'm going to use. Bon the whole time was the epitome of traditionalism, the way he dressed, the way he acted. He was about, the way things were meant to be. Yeah. You don't agree?
Let's go ahead and fast forward to the end and say, is he really about tradition the whole time?
And then Shin was the one that was, changing things a lot in every manner, and the wild card. And so I think for Bon, letting Rakugo die with him was like letting the true art of Rakugo, the untainted art of Rakugo, die with him.
Parenthetical for Dr. Jank, he considers his art, his Rakugo, the only version. And Sukeroku never changed it. He wanted to, but he dies before he can.
It's kind of a naive stance, though, isn't it? Really, because the idea that
he's a
the
nerd.
Rakugo that I'm doing is the traditional, unchanged type. No, I don't think so. Do you think the Rakugo they were doing in 1700 was like what you're doing?
Yeah,
I doubt it.
Well, Philip, he's being gatekeepy. How many people on freaking BookTube do we have who are like, I do real BookTube videos. I don't do this particular type of video. Seriously, this is not real like discussion of something because there's way too much fun being had over here and not nearly enough polysyllabic vocabulary for it to count as an actual discussion of something. Or Philip's like, I don't have a TV, like things like that.
I don't have a TV either. You and I are better than Alan.
Of course.
What's the point of not having a TV if you don't tell people?
No point, Alan. There's no point. I just watch stuff on my laptop. I'm not better.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you don't have a TV, do you really not have a TV if you don't tell people you don't? Like, I mean, it's important that everybody know. But I mean, Bond's being so gatekeepy with his stupid Rakugo stuff. But I understand because I am that exact same way. I know it seems like I'm just, everybody's laughing, having a good time, and I come in like the A-bomb and boom, everything's dead. But I don't try to be. There are many things that I'm just like, that is not the way that we do things in this particular sphere. So I have my own thing with
traditionalist streak.
Art. You know what? I like art to look like something. So Picasso drawing a woman, if you say so, I think it's seriously, I hate it so much. I am a huge fan of art looking like what it looks like. So,
So I would argue that I would present that a big theme in this series is potentially passions that overtake us to the point of potentially being destructive in our lives. So, this is a crew of very passionate people, and sometimes that passion leads them down really dark roads.
Yeah.
And one could argue that Bond's passion for Rakugo is so strong that it might strangle the art itself.
Yeah.
But
not to mention his relationships, right? I mean, so it has an effect on the overall art because he is in a position of power. He's in a position of great respect, but it also obviously has a huge effect on his relationships. You could say the same with Sukeroku, his obsession with his particular form and changing it to keep it alive gets him. He has blinders as well, doesn't he? Sukeroku. He thinks he's going to revolutionize Rakugo and save it and all of that, which is, a good idea. But without that respect for tradition, it's almost like you have the two, and even though they're close friends, they've got these polar opposite stances on Rakugo. And that's a great dynamic. I love how that's set up in here. You've got the traditionalist in Yakumo, and you've got the revolutionary in Sukeroku. And they're both right and they're both wrong because they're both so insistent on their own path.
Yeah, but at the end, I mean, we do see the character growth. Rakugo survives. Like at the end, it's just like, you know what? Yeah, like you can be my apprentice. Go do your Rakugo. And
probably shouldn't talk too much specifics.
And freaking Yotaro has his own, Rakugo business with his other apprentices and stuff.
He's got like 80 apprentices, right?
I know. Like Yotaro keeps it. I think between him and the writer guy and whatever, like they managed to realize that there are many ways to do this, and it just blends the two of them, like his respect for Yakumo and his similarities to Sukeroku. He is the two like merged together and carries it on in that way. Sorry.
I hate that you're suffering through trying to do this while you're unwell.
I was well until I watched that scene at the diner.
That's what took you out.
Infected.
All right. Spoilers?
Sure, why not?
Here we go. Spoilers.
All right. Everybody who plans to watch or read this and doesn't want to be spoiled, leave. Because we are talking about the ending. And we're not going to start with the worst part. Let's build up to it.
I was starting with it.
Let's start with the beginning. Oh wow, we're going into it in the comments though. I think the ending is gross and uncomfortable, but makes sense for Bon in particular if he saw an aspect of Miyokiji and Sukuroku, obvious attraction to both in Konatsu, and what Murphy said about passion.
I mean, okay, but I'm gonna go ahead and let you know, like, you're her guardian, and that's your best friend's daughter.
No, you're her father. I don't care about the biological.
Sure.
You're her father.
Gross. Gross. And the problem is it doesn't add anything to the story. Like, the story is in no way enriched by this information, other than like, oh, look, Rakugo, he survives through his like bloodline, which is just okay. Like, give him a prostitute. Like we saw.
Here's the thing, Alan. Here's the thing. If it's the point is that Rakugo survives through bloodline, and the idea is, and it has to be this bloodline because that merges Miyokiji and Bon and Shin all together as one, and like that's where the bond is, that's where the trauma was, or the drama and all the things were, so now they're all one. Like if that's truly what we're doing, then I feel like it messes with a lot of the themes that we've built up as well, because
look at Dr. Jank comment. That's what I'm going with. Dr. Jank's comment.
The positive thing about the scene is that it's easy to just consider the guy's theory wrong, and she was just playing. So
I don't think that's what's happening, but
I have things to say about that too. But hang on.
There's evidence early on that it is.
Hold on. I do want to get to that. 1 second though. The thing is that this is a series that has had an emphasis on found family. There's the fact that Bon himself is not a bloodline descendant for Rakugo. He was adopted into, like, he took the name of someone who was not his blood relative. He passed his name on to Yotaro. Like, there's so many things that don't tie to blood as Rakugo continuing on the tradition, living forward, that are not tied to blood. There's just no reason to have to tie it to blood this time. So it's like it takes the found family elements and slaps you in the face with them and says, just kidding, we're not doing that.
It feels to me like when I'm reading a fantasy book that has to remind me that, oh, look at how morally gray my characters are. And it's like, and I've had this discussion before where, like, morally gray just doesn't mean you're an a-hole all the time. Like, that's not what that means. Like, we make morally gray decisions in our everyday lives sometimes, that don't have this massive, like, catastrophic consequences. It's just like, oh, well, people are they're forgiving Bone too much. Like, he's been redeemed too much. Let's get this one thing that's going to throw in there and make it edgy. It doesn't feel natural. It feels very having autism, I struggle with things that I don't understand. And that is part of what makes this particular thing so hard for me, and why I can't stop fixating on it, is I don't even understand the author's reason for including it. Whether or not I agree with it or not, I don't even understand its original intent, because it seems so out there, so bizarre, and so undermining that I just don't get it. And I hated it. I hated it so much, because I'm just like, what? We like him holding her at night and saying the thing that Sukuroku used to say to her is gross now. Like, it was sweet and touching, and now it's disgusting.
Or their really tender scene when they were crying together, and she was saying, "Thank you so much for raising me," and he was like, "Thank you for being the reason I lived."
I loved that scene.
I did too.
So I guess
listen, I will say, for those in the comments saying that Konatsu is lying, is their headcanon and stuff like that, I'm so down. Like, let's let that be. It's just that the story, I think that if you want to end your story on a big twist, if you want to end it on, leaving it open-ended because it's Rakugo and the reader gets to interpret things, like if you want to do that kind of ending, I'm all for that. But why this thing? Why this thing that the most obvious reading, the most what Konatsu is kind of leaning towards with her smirk and with her, all right, keep this secret just between us, don't tell my husband, like that kind of thing. Why this? If you want to have a twist that makes people think and makes people discuss, why make it something that could potentially ruin the whole series? for your reader if they read it in the most obvious way, and they have to basically apply multiple layers of cope to make it not that thing.
And there is actually, I think, earlier evidence that this scene is to be taken pretty much for what it seems to be. At the beginning of Volume 9, there is that scene between Yakumo the Eighth and the mob boss guy, and they're under the umbrella, and they're talking, and near the end of it, Yakumo is saying, I'll always be happy to listen when you need someone to grumble to. I owe you more than I could ever repay. And you're like, really? I haven't seen that. What does he owe him? What did he do for him? And the mob boss guy replies, that's all in the past now, and I wouldn't have come this far in life if I couldn't keep quiet when it mattered. You don't need to worry about that. And then he says, yes. And I'm pretty sure that this is alluding to what is in the cafe scene. That, yeah, I took it on the chin for you. I pretended to be the father when that goofball Yotaro accused me. I didn't say, oh, actually, he knew, he covered for him, essentially, is what I think this scene is meaning, I think. And that makes me sad because I don't want to think of that scene in the cafe as being as I essentially interpreted it. I'd rather it didn't ruin the huge part of this and basically the character of Yakumo for me, because I loved his character up until that happened.
Yeah, someone in my Discord was also mentioning that there's some good implications that, like, with him, there's some solid implications that she maybe got him drunk and then she took advantage of him. And
she
that's
says,
the way
I
it
did it
happened,
because I wanted to. She says that.
which
right?
would then taint her, the character. So either way, we lose as readers,
Go ahead and
especially
that I did it because I wanted to is what every single underage girl that sleeps with like a 30-year-old, like that, some weird creepy guy that picks her up at the mall, like.
The thing is, too, if you want to write this into your story and you want to unpack it and talk about the implications of it, that's great. Do it. But
Yeah.
leaving it as like the twist and then backing off and saying, oh, but maybe not, though. Like,
weird,
find this
smug
topic
way
for that.
that Natsu, she's just like, yeah, like, oh, maybe. She is smiling the whole time. And I'm like, this is not how we deal with this particular thing for me. I agree, Murphy. Like dealing with like having there be a fallout from that, at least we would have had something. Instead, it's just like,
Here's another thing, and this is highly personal, but this is what like set me over the edge from that's disgusting. Why would you do that? To actually, it really, really upset me. Is not only what's that?
I thought you were saying that's disgusting because I blew my nose right as you said that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alan. No, it's not about you.
I mean, that is too, Alan, but okay. Yeah.
But the thing is, so it's not the fact that it's this father-daughter relationship, this adoptive family that you have built up as being something complicated but tender, which is disgusting, but it's also the line of dialogue that builds up to that says, if you live together and you have a blood relation, then, your family, well, he didn't say then your family, but he said without blood, two people that live together that long, feelings may arise. So as an adoptive mother, that also just kind of felt like a slap across the face to basically say like blood is what protects you from developing feelings for your family members, which one, if you don't think adoptive families are legit families, maybe don't write about them. But two, that's wrong. Like so many sexual assaults happen within the family. Like that's just definably false. And I know it was one character saying that, but in the midst of everything else, that really hurt. That really hurt as an adoptive mom to read. That sucked.
Yeah. And to your point, also, Murphy, his name is Yakumo the Eighth. He's not a blood relative to Yakumo the Seventh. As you said earlier, there's an emphasis on found family, on the relationships between the older generation and the younger, and assuming these very important roles, mentorship and parental roles. And then you're absolutely right. Then this just sort of just blows up in your face. And you're like, wait, what about all this wonderful stuff that came before? It actually somehow corrupts everything that I've loved about Yakumo the Eighth. So that's why it's so upsetting. Is you took a beautiful story and you put this garbage into it. But you know what? I feel like we've kind of squeezed a lot of the pus out of this particular wound. Maybe we should talk about some of the nice stuff at some point.
No, I agree. I don't want to make the whole stream about this one scene. However, I do want to quickly. Oh, I don't think I can put it on the screen. So just
the Yakumos are like bloodline related. Like in Japan adopts like adult men to carry on family businesses because they don't want, family businesses are usually like dead in like 2 generations or whatever, because it passes down like genetically and someone ruins it. To avoid that happening, family businesses in Japan, they'll adopt 30, 40-year-old into the family to carry on the business. So that is not an uncommon thing in Japan, and it never has been. Like samurai families, like old, daimyo families, any of that, like adoption is a huge deal and extremely common. So the bloodline thing just doesn't make any sense.
That's a really good point, Alan. That's a really good point. Something that I wouldn't have thought about on my own. And this is also a really good point by Astaroth. In the anime, Yakumo and the kid are the only 2 characters with gray eyes. So for him, the headcanon doesn't even work to think that she was lying about it, because the anime signals that this is truthful. That's a really, really good point. I watched the anime with Astaroth. He's in my Discord, and he noticed that and he was like, it's obvious what's going to happen. And I was like, I didn't see that because I'm color deficient. So I didn't even notice that their eyes were the same. But anyway, before we move on really quick, I did put a poll in the chat that said, do you like the twist? Yes or no? 18% said that they liked it. 33% said that they hated it. And 49% said that it was complicated. And Whiskey Jack is one.
That they liked it?
And Whiskey Jack is one that feels that it's complicated, and I want to highlight the reasons why. The point that it adds nothing, I personally think, is a huge part of Rakugo, because beauty had been created from a bad situation. The art itself in the war, and the child representing that very theme. Then Whiskey Jack goes on to say, I think that it's gross and uncomfortable on a personal level because it does make sense, but it should have been handled with more seriousness than it was. And I think
we also already got there's like art is beautiful through like horrible things. Like everyone we already had that going on. We did not need this additional like foray into whatever. Guys, you guys who liked the twist, I mean, you're not right. I'll say, no one else will say it. I'll say it. It's not a good twist, guys.
There's also a lot of people saying that this is just common in Japan. We're aware. We know that this happens in manga. We know that Japan views this differently, but
sure, it's gross.
This is us talking. So we're talking about our impressions on it. And also, can't you hear your first cousin here as well?
They throw a fish down there that's completely like unscaled, uncooked, just staring at you, and they eat it. It's gross. I don't care that they do it in Japan. It's disgusting. So
I mean, I agree. Yeah, an adoptive father-daughter relationship is disgusting. I don't really care. Like, it is.
Yeah, well, the issue here is you're in a position where you are okay. There's a moral component to this, and I get all the cultural relativism stuff, but when you're in a position of authority and you're a mentor and you're a guide to a person, to engage in any kind of a sexual relationship is to betray that, essentially. And that's the moral part of this that I find very difficult to say, well, it's kind of like this over there, and they're more tolerant of this and that. And just fundamentally, I think that's a relationship that should never go in that direction, because it is a relationship of dependence, and you can never have a sexual relationship of equals under those kinds of circumstances. So it's just like you never, ever, ever go there, in my opinion. Anyway.
So I'll also just really quick mention, I agree, it does happen in other cultures, but that doesn't make it exempt from commentary or speculation or discussion. So
and
that's why we're discussing it.
We're using our own, cultural mores, morality, ethics, whatever, that may be different in other places. But okay, this is where I'm from. and where I come from, it's gross. So, you know. Anyway, Murphy. So what about everything else? Like what about
Yes, let's talk about everything else.
Mm.
So,
has made his own, like moved it forward, and like he's got all these little mini Rakugo people, and freaking Konatsu is a Rakugo artist. I think that's awesome. That I did like I loved, because this is another one of the reasons that twist bothered me so much, is because we just saw right as he dies, he's like, yeah, of course you can be my apprentice, like absolutely. You're like, we see Yakumo be like, you know what, you should, I'm okay. Like women should be able to do Rakugo too. I love you, kid. Like you go and you do you. And you know, and then he dies. He passes on his blessing to her, which is all like that's what she's craved for forever. Like, give me put me in, coach. Like, let me go and do Rakugo. And only Yotaro has given her that, like the taste of doing it for those little kids with Tiki Tiki Timbo kid, or the story. And then, you know, he gives the blessing and then he dies and goes and hangs out with Sukeroku. And whoa! Anyway, I really enjoyed the scene in the Afterlife where he's hanging out with Sukeroku and Miyakichi and stuff. And then like everything's overwritten by, you know, the stuff that happens at the end. But I really did enjoy the fact that she finally gets to do Rakugo alongside her husband and you know, their friends and everything. And I really, really enjoyed that. And the fact that the writer guy is helping to keep it alive by having written you know, a bio about Yakumo and a history of Rakugo throughout, you know, the 70s or whatever. And I really enjoyed the way it ended. Except
I did too. I really enjoyed, like, the ending would have been a 9 or 10 apart from that one scene. So it sucks that scene affects the entire series instead of just being some like random bad line and just being like, oh, I didn't like that. Okay, moving on. But Philip, Alan and I were ahead of you in the last chat. So you got to see Bond's performance and right before the mob boss and the arrest and everything. How did you feel about that scene?
Yeah, I mean, it was endearing first that Yotaro sort of was setting all this up. And by the way, I want to say about Yotaro, I'm so glad that he is untouched by any of the yuckiness. That his character essentially for me is the show stealer. His character for me was like, I love this guy. He is so naive and so lovable and wonderful, and just he's like a puppy who wants everyone to be happy. And I love that about him. His innocence is really endearing to me. And so he's the one behind that. I feel like he's the one who's pushed for this moment for his teacher, for his mentor. And he gets to put on his thing. And then poor Yakumo gets up there to do his thing. And then the police come in and arrest the dude. So yeah, I mean, that was cool. I think the even more powerful performance for me, though, was when Yakumo was doing, and this is one that I do love the way this series has made thematic certain actual Rakugo stories. And the God of Death is one of the most important ones. It keeps coming up again and again and again at the right moment. You know, great job, Haruko Kumoto, in incorporating this God of Death theme in here, because that is the one that he's doing at the end of Volume 9. This performance is just eerie in how he sees Sukeroku, who then turns into the God of Death in the middle of this whole thing. And I loved it. I just, and you know, who throws the candle? Does he throw it himself? Does the God of Death throw it?
Well, you know? Sukeroku says, like, implies that the Shinigami is like real, like that it goes between worlds.
Not even implies. It
says it. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. He's real.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
So
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It was great. It took a really freaky, I mean, look at him sitting on top of him there. I mean, it took a really freaky turn there. And I was like, this is cool. I like this. And the way that was set up from the beginning, because the God of Death is the story that Yakumo told when Yotaro was in prison. That's the thing that started the whole thing, you know. So that
whole scene with the God of Death holding him down when Yotaro was trying to pull him out, and it burned his face. That was all so strong. Like, I loved that scene so much.
Brilliant stuff. So, in that respect, as I said in the beginning, I love how the Rakugo stories are incorporated into the series as a whole and how they reinforce all these really great themes. And there are certain ones that keep coming, they're like echoes. You keep hearing these stories and how these stories are woven into the characters' lives, the characters who are, the manga characters. So good stuff.
Yeah. I am the one I completely agree. The Shinigami thing where the theater burns down is awesome. And then because it burned down, it appears in the afterlife. So
It's in the afterlife too. I know. I love that. That's very Japanese too, right? For like not humans to also have a sort of presence and would have
one
that
thing,
passing on quality.
One thing weird for me was I think there was a whole lot of focus and like directing our attention, like Chekhov's gun, like with the whole double suicide murder thing. And it just feels like that was never realized in a way that I felt satisfied with, considering how often we were pointed towards it. And
we were pointed towards it a lot, yeah.
Like it felt like it was going to be more impactful than it ended up being.
Yeah, I think it led us to specifically Bon wanting to take his own life and take Rakugo with him.
Yeah.
Or the true art of Rakugo. That's kind of how it manifested in the story.
Yeah. And of course, I think it was sort of spinning around the deaths of Sukeroku and Miyokichi wanting to have a double suicide with Yakumo.
Threatening it all the time, yeah.
Yeah, so it's there. It's in this sort of like in orbit around the story, but it's not as central as you would have thought. And there is, of course, the one Rakugo that is, I think, the word double suicide is part of the title of the Rakugo. It's that comedic one that we talked about earlier, where the guy falls in the river and the woman at the last second decides, no, I don't want to do this, and then he comes back to haunt her. Only he's actually just alive.
Yeah.
I loved the afterlife. To me, the afterlife scene was wonderfully paced, with them walking through the streets and going into the bathhouse, and how they kept changing their age. And then even at the boat, the end where Bon got to pass on, and Shin had to stay behind, and they did their little pinky swear again, and they didn't want to separate. And then Matsuda was there to carry him into the new life. Like I thought it was so beautiful.
I didn't know why Bon couldn't pay Sukeroku's passage. Like he had the money. I didn't understand why he didn't like.
Yeah, that wasn't really addressed. I wondered that as well. I don't know if it's just a rule you can't pay someone else's way. And the thing I think this is really beautiful too is Shin used his money, unless I misunderstood, so you can correct me. He used the money that he gained from working in the afterlife. He used it to go visit Bon. And now they have to work up their money again to be able to.
Well, he also buys drink with it. Like they just keep spending the money that they make.
Yeah.
I don't know a ton about this, but I do think that in Japanese Buddhism there is a concept of a kind of a limbo where you hang out if you're not quite ready to go be absorbed into the universe or Buddha or whatever, and from this limbo, I think that's where ghosts come and haunt the world. And of course, that is something you see presented in here. Like with Miyokichi, comes not only to see Yakumo, but comes to see Konatsu at a certain point, right? She has a vision of her mother and says, "Oh, when she's wearing the kimono and looking in the mirror, and then there suddenly is her mother, right?" And she's like, "Oh, you're seeing me now, or you're visiting me now too, eh?" She seems to realize that she has been visiting Yakumo. So that would, be consistent, I suppose. But I also love the detail I love the most, Murphy, like you, was how Matsuda shows up because he was his driver, right? And he shows up
so sweet.
Ferry him across the river.
He loves them so much.
Yeah. I thought he was dead. I was so happy when he shows up.
I thought he was dead too.
He shows up in a wheelchair though, and he's like, I get
Well, he's 95.
So he got pulled. So, oh my golly. Okay, wait. Let's talk about this. So he got pulled into the afterlife because he was needed to bring Bon, shepherd him to the next step for him. But
Yeah.
two, also when they performed Rakugo in the Afterlife,
Yeah.
and the person they wanted to see the performance the most got pulled into that scene.
Yeah.
It was so tender. I really, really loved this scene because Konatsu showing up as a little girl and excitedly watching her dad and then rejecting her mom, but then accepting the hug. I thought that was really, really needed between Konatsu and Miyokichi. And then Shinosuke? Is that his name?
Shinosuke? Shinosuke?
Yeah, Shinanosuke is fine.
Yeah,
Nosuke?
it would be Nosuke. It's that Suke again that we talked
That's
about,
the
remember?
pronunciation thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Shinosuke also shows up, and I loved the two in their little kid form, just laughing with each other, the father or the mother and son. I thought that was really, really sweet as well.
They wouldn't have been
But
able to do it if the theater hadn't burned down.
what?
They wouldn't have been able to do it if the theater hadn't burned down.
Yeah. So again, that's something beautiful coming from something tragic. So I would like to answer this. What do you think it means with Yotaro seeing
Don't remember.
Bond's ghost? So
Don't
I think
When did it happen? I don't remember it.
it was at the very end.
Is it?
Remember when Yotaro was performing and then Bond showed up as a ghost and he's like, "Oh, now it's your fate to see this too. Sucks for you." And then he just left.
I legit do not remember that.
You were just still raging about the other thing.
It was.
Yeah.
So I think it's because people who are truly passionate and connected with the art form of Rakugo, it's almost like that veil that separates the natural and the spiritual is pulled aside and they kind of connect with that as well. That's the way I took it. And so when Yotaro got to the point in his Rakugo career where he had that connection as well, where he could kind of like pull the veil back, then he started having the same experiences that Bon and Konatsu were already having before him.
Also, I think brilliantly, and this is the scene in question, Alan. I think brilliantly, what's the Rakugo that Yotaro is telling?
Oh, it's Shinigami. He's telling
It's
Shinigami.
God of Death. It's God of Death, right? Which is
He's telling Shinigami. Yeah. I remember that now. When he's telling Shinigami, because I don't think Yotaro had done Shinigami. We had never seen him perform Shinigami.
no. It's so closely associated with Yakumo. It's like his thing, and it's of course for Yotaro to do this, it's a tribute. What did you guys think of him though taking on the Yakumo name and becoming Yakumo the Ninth?
Yeah, that was awesome.
You like that
like,
touch?
Yotaro is completely guileless. I love it. Like he has nothing but like the purest love for Rakugo, for Konatsu, for his kids. Like we didn't talk about second child.
Oh yeah.
Girl who's bothering her nerd brothers, like, you're gonna blah, blah. And
why aren't you listening to music? Why are you listening to Rakugo? I love it.
Yeah.
I just love, like, he is a cinnamon roll, as the booktube parlance went a couple years ago.
Or his reaction when Konatsu tells him, he's a baby.
That's all he does is weep. Like
he just embraces her and he cries. And I got weepy when he was doing that because I think, he's just so lovable, and I love that he got that.
I agree, and he's done such a good job building on what his two influences, because he has been both Sukeroku. He was Sukeroku 3, and now is Yakumo 9. And so he's the one who's really blended the two and kept Rakugo alive in at least their part of Japan, and has he's opened it up to where more people can experience it. I'm certain he still has probably some ties with the TV station to where they're still like exposing, like doing like kids Rakugo and things like that. So
and he has 80 apprentices. Important.
Yeah.
So it's not something that Sukeroku died too early to have them, and Yakumo actively declined to have them. So
Yakumo had like 3. We had the one guy who was studying to be a doctor who wasn't any good, and Yotaro, and then maybe one other guy.
Konatsu for a millisecond.
Yeah. So it's become just this big booming thing.
Yeah.
That has thrived. So I think it's tremendous, and I now remember him doing Shinigami, which is cool. This is cool.
I keep kicking the stack of books that my laptop is propped on. That's all. We talked about this off camera before we went live. The twist. So I loved the ending. I thought the ending was a 10 if you remove that scene. Actually, I thought the ending was a 9 if you remove that scene. The other thing that I really didn't like was the resolution of how Shin got stabbed.
Oh.
It was a whoopsie. It was, she's always threatening us that she's gonna kill herself and us, and then whoops, she slipped. Silly girl. And it's like, what? That was such an anticlimactic reason for why he got stabbed.
Like it just didn't pan out to how like important they thought that scene was. And I guess it is because of, what Bond was covering for. But at the same time, like, it just seems that at that point you can be like, hey, so it was a legit accident. Like, she slipped, stabbed him, you came in at the wrong time. Like, I just don't know what he's covering for at that point. There wasn't anything malicious. Is her mom was stable? I don't know.
I think there's a little bit of a lack of clarity around that scene still, but I feel like she did come with the knife. And she was talking about double suicide.
Sure. So you think he's lying for her?
Well, what I think happened, maybe something, and I'm putting this together in my head based on the very slippery facts that were being given here. I feel like maybe Sukeroku came in and intervened and said, and accidentally, she didn't mean to stab him like maliciously or something, but in a little bit of a scuffle or a struggle, he's trying to stop her from hurting herself. Maybe he got stabbed, it's hard to say, but we do get to see his stitches in the afterlife where he got stabbed.
I thought she flat out says that it was that she tripped. Like,
but so you could say that she came with this intention of having this double suicide because she had the knife with her. She's talking to Yakumo about it, and there is some. You could apportion some blame because of that intention that she came with in the first place. But yeah, it's kind of a little messy, I think.
Whiskey Jack, I may be misunderstanding you, but I just want to clarify. We're not talking about the initial twist when we find out that, in fact, Konatsu was the one that caused these two to fall off the banister. That twist we loved because it recontextualized the entire way that Bond had been acting with Konatsu up to that point, and that he was covering for her to protect her from the guilt and all that. We loved that. We're talking about the scene in the afterlife when they're in the bathhouse, and Shin says, "Yeah, she stabbed me out of an accident. She tripped, she fell, I stab, we die." Like that was the conclusion. And we didn't love that final because we thought that there were going to be more layers there. And it just ended up being, someone who is deeply, deeply, I don't know how to describe Miyokiji, actually. Very depressed, very desperate. She was very desperate. And she kept threatening this thing, but never following through. And then she just ended up falling and killing her husband.
If you go watch that other video, you'll see we had many other theories
we had a lot of theories about what that was,
and that the mangaka should have used.
He should have listened to us. Seriously,
could have been like, "Hey, those are really good. I'm going to use one of those," instead of just being like, "You know what? I'm going to save all of my energy for making Bone the kid's dad." Dun dun dun.
He put himself right where he could get the most attention. Do you see that?
Is that guy's name Cyrus?
Yeah.
Named after, is it Cyrus the Great?
I don't know. He was a stray. Well, not a stray. He was abandoned, and then the people that took him in named him Cyrus, but they didn't want him, so he's ours now.
Okay, with Cyrus the Great.
He is Cyrus
the
Great.
Alan. He's named after Cyrus the Great.
What other Cyrus would there be? If someone named after a different Cyrus, they're lame. That's Cyrus the Great, freaking Persian Empire.
That's it.
I feel like
my son named him after Cyrus the Great.
A cat is automatically the Great anyway, I think, right? So
I mean, well, the thing is, there are other Cyruses. There's Cyrus the Younger, who sucks.
Oh, well, of course.
Yeah.
I agree with this right here. There's the story is intentionally open-ended in so many ways. We can interpret the relationships between the characters, we can interpret the motivation behind the decisions that characters make, we can interpret even instances like, Shin saying, "Oops, it was an accident," we could even take that and say, "Ah, he's covering for her again." Like, there's so many things that we can discuss and discuss and discuss and discuss. And each time we watch a new episode or read a new volume, we get more information that makes us have to reevaluate everything again. That's one thing. I will never watch this series again because I now have like some feelings. But that if you can get over that thing, then I think that this would be a series that on reread and rewatch would be so much richer because there's so much. Hey,
It's Cyrus the Lesser.
No, this is Tiberius Claudius Nero Germanicus.
Of course it is.
Of course it is.
Claudius. He's so fat.
My other cat's name is Locke from The Lies of Locke Lamora. Alan, read the book.
Of course.
Everyone tells me to, and not one person will tell me why I like it, why I would like it. Not one.
I can tell you when we get off stream. I'll tell you.
Oh yeah,
I don't want to
I'll
derail.
tell you too. It's a perfect Alan book.
Why? Like, are there themes of justice and
oh yeah, big time.
Righting the wrongs of the corrupt?
Yep. Robin Hood. It's like Robin Hood.
I don't like
cooler.
No, it's not. What are you talking about?
I'm just trying to get him to read it.
You're just making up stuff to make him read it. Okay. Is there anything else we want to talk about before we wrap this up?
I mean, I enjoyed it. I appreciate you all letting me tag along. Again, I would not have read this without.
Well, you didn't read it.
I would not have watched this without.
You know what, the lesser form.
I have a kid that sits in the front row of my classes. That's exactly what you do right there. Guys, my wife likes the Christmas tree. Like, take it up my wife, who's the nicest person in the world, which makes y'all bad.
I'm going to be triggered by this. Why you got to tell him that people are talking about him behind his back in another location? That's never going to end well.
Look, do you think I give a crap what random people I don't know think about my wife liking the Christmas tree up till March?
He's being a good husband.
My wife is way nicer than most people I know. So that makes y'all bad people.
Actually, she's the nicest person on the planet.
That's what I'm saying.
Wonderful.
That's what I'm saying. She made Philip weep.
Yeah, she did actually. She made me cry. That is the true story. Yeah.
That makes her sound mean.
I was about to say that could be taken multiple ways, but we'll assume that it's a nice thing.
By his tie and shoved his head in the toilet until he's wet.
No,
took the bacon from his hand, threw it on the ground.
In a good way.
Yeah. This is why I like the community aspect of BookTube and stuff like this, because it makes exposure to stuff that I wouldn't normally do. I'd miss out. Like, I do not regret having spent time watching this. I mean, I don't love the way it ended, but again, like, just because something ended poorly doesn't mean I like regret how we got there. And especially for all you Sanderson fans, like, if y'all hate it because of that reason, then y'all better figure out what Journey Before Destination means, since y'all tell that to me all the time.
These are manga audience.
Do what?
This is the manga audience.
Oh, well, I don't know what that means. Do y'all
yelling at the wrong people?
Oh,
yeah, you're not yelling at a bunch of Sanderson fanboys.
I don't know. You read Sanderson and manga?
I do.
I don't know. I'm just look, Murphy. You've done messed it up. Like, I don't know what I was saying. Anyway, I enjoyed it, even though the ending, I didn't like that part of it, but I still enjoyed it. I'm glad. Like, there was a lot to offer it, but I would 100% seriously, if you have not read it, it's like, well, it's already been spoiled. But skip the part. I love that huge bit of cat hair that just floated across your
It just
screen.
kind of, yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yes, I agree. I think we've had some awesome discussions through this series. So it's still been a great experience for me, even if I have strong feelings about the end.
I agree. Question from Camilla about, do we think Bon was in love with Sukoroku? I think he was, maybe not necessarily romantic love, but he had very deep and strong feelings of both. love and hatred, you could say, because of what Tsukuroku was to him. I mean, he was his best friend and he was his rival at the same time. You know, he meant so much to him. That relationship was so central to his existence. So, you know, love is maybe even too small a word for what that relationship was. You know?
We also forget that like this like love is as a modern like concept is very like narrow and whatever. Like the ancient Greeks and the Romans, I mean, you were expected to have these huge emotions and this incredible like affection and attachment to like your brothers, like brothers in arms. Like it didn't even have to be you know, someone you're related to. You just had this incredible amount, this depth of feeling for the people that you were close to that wasn't necessarily a romantic thing. Like it didn't have to be Eros, you know, the romantic love thing. It could just be this deep, passionate caring about someone else and about their well-being and being connected with them and everything. So it's so no, I'm like Philip. I don't think he was romantically in love with him, but I think they definitely had.
It's ambiguous. It's ambiguous. I think.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think you could read it either way. Much like many things in this series, it leaves it open for reader to pull at different threads and bring their own interpretation to it. Personally, my read on it was I don't think Bond was really interested in a romantic or intimate sexual relationship with anyone. He kind of just let relationships fall on him and then float away when it didn't work out. His real passion, his real love was Rakugo. And then he had very intimate, tender relationships with other people, but I didn't see him ever seeking out any sort of romantic or sexually intimate relationship with anyone other than the twist, which kind of, who knows? So maybe my read on it is wrong.
Yeah. But yeah, there is ambiguity in this series, which is cool. You know, I can live with that. So, and I just to you know, give my little 2 cents at the end as well. I'm glad I read this. I had a blast talking about it with you two and interacting today with people in the chat has been a lot of fun as well. So yeah, this is I would rate this a very positive experience overall. I'm glad I read the series too. I'm not gonna throw away my copies of the manga just because of that scene. There was too much in there that I loved. There was a lot of beauty in it and a lot of great, thoughtful storytelling that I thoroughly enjoyed. So yeah, good choice overall, I think, for us.
All right. Anything else? Should we wrap it up? All right. Thank you all for joining us for this chat on Descending Stories. It was tumultuous, but good. So thank you for everybody's input. I know the three of us have very similar feelings. So those who had other inputs in the chat, thank you for that as well. And we will see you next time on Philip's channel as we start our One Piece journey. Or
actually, I think we're going to do our first episode. It's going to be on Mike's channel.
On Mike's channel as we start our One Piece journey. Yep. Bye, everybody.